What is happening, guys? Welcome back to River's Garage and welcome to the road to horsepower. When we left off in the last video, we're making 14.5 horsepower and 12.5 foot-pounds of torque with our Hemi Predator engine. We put some 1.2 ratio rockers in it in the last video, and today we're going to be upgrading the head with this ported head that is the same style head. We haven't milled any off of it, but I've ported up the exhaust and the intake side, taking out the rough edges in this head and also port matching the intake and the exhaust. So this should help flow a ton more because we have that high lift cam and we also have those ratio rockers. This is going to help achieve even more horsepower for relatively free. You just need a few Dremel tools to achieve this, and you can see on camera all I've done is really took out the edges. I've blended in the valve guides, and I've also blended in the valve seats because there's a lot of times there can be up to a 10,000ths lip where the seat meets the aluminum. So this head should flow really good, and since we're upgrading the head, we're going to also upgrade our valves. We got some stainless valves here. These are stock size, but the stem has been tapered, so it'll help excel the flow around the stem, and these should help make a very slight amount of horsepower difference, but they are stronger and they're going to last longer. To go with these, we have some billet retainers, we have some split automotive style keepers, and we also have some ultra light and strong lash caps. So we're going to get this head dressed out. We're going to pull the engine off the dyno and get it installed and see what kind of power we can make with just a Dremel and some hard work. First, I'm going to remove the spark plug, carb, valve cover, and valves before removing the head. You can see the stock intake gasket, if not trim, hangs over the intake port and it restricts a ton of flow. Since we're using new valves, I need to lap them to ensure a good seal. Use valve grinding compound and a suction cup. You can see the lines around the valve is etched in and the valves are seated. Clean all the grinding compound from the head and valve. Using a valve spring compressor, I can install the valve springs and retainers. We have links to parts and tools down in the video's description if you are interested in any of them. I use a small amount of assembly lube to hold the keepers into place. With a new head gasket, we can reinstall our head and our valve train. All right, so you can see we have the two graphs laid over top of each other. One of them is before when we ran the big air filter with the ratio rockers, and then we have our run with the ported head. So we was making horsepower. If you look up here, the green and light blue is the torque and horsepower for the ported head, and the purple and yellow is the torque and horsepower for the run with the ratio rockers. On the ported head, we was making power all the way to 7,500 RPMs when I stopped the pull. We was still increasing in horsepower. I didn't want to push the engine any further, to be honest, but so at 7,000 RPMs, we was making 15.79 horsepower, and our horsepower peaked at 16.35. So if we would have pushed it even further, I feel like it wouldn't have went a lot further, and we probably need to start looking into a little bit beefier valve springs than what we already have in there, but that's pretty impressive. So at our, let's just go to 7,000 RPMs, we was making 15.79 horsepower with the ported head, and without the ported head, we was making 14.02. So we made almost 2 horsepower more at the same RPM. We look where we peaked with our last engine. Let's click here. 14.46 was our max horsepower at that, and that was at about 6,600 RPMs. At that same RPM, we was making over 1 horsepower more. So that's pretty impressive. And then on torque, purple is our ratio rocker engine. We was making 12.47 at the same RPM. We was making 12.9 with the ported head. We maxed out a few hundred RPMs higher at 13.09. So big improvements for something so little. Pretty impressed with that. Really liking these numbers. It's pretty sweet. So this was a huge success with a 2 horsepower gain. That is massive for just some free work. It took several hours to do this. The only bad thing about these heads is you're so confined with space inside of them. So just take your time, sit there with the Dremel, and we have links to a few things down below, especially all the parts we're using and will be using on this engine throughout the Dyno series. But we also have benchmark abrasives, and they have some really good carbide bits. You can get them in the 1/8 inch shanks or 1/4 inch, and that's what we use to port this head. And we do have a discount code down there for benchmark abrasive. So if you're checking out, they got a ton of things that you would use in porting heads, the sanding disc, all types of stuff. So I highly recommend porting your head. We should have ported the head earlier in the series, honestly, because the gains was so massive helping this head flow. And next would be either bigger valves. We can do a 20 thousandths longer rod in this engine because we can clear that, or we could even go up to a non-Hemi head. I'm going to think about how I want to do this, and we was still making horsepower all the way till I let out. I let out around 7,500 RPMs because we're still on single valve springs. So I do think we should slap some dual valve springs in it soon and rev it until she won't rev anymore to see what happens. Worst case scenario, we blow it up and we know the limit and we go on from there. But I'm super pumped with how this series is going. I'm going to get a ported and milled non-Hemi head to put on this. I think we'll go with just a ported head to slap on it of the non-Hemi variant to see the difference between the Hemi and the non-Hemi. And we'll put 1.2 ratio rockers. We'll go with the same setup, just the non-Hemi style that's been ported up. And then I want to mill this head a little bit and then mill a lot off the non-Hemi head because we can clear it. And then we're going to start trying out some different cams in this engine and just start getting more compression. We'll bore it out. We got a lot left to do to this engine, so stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out the links in the video description. They do help us continue this series. We have all the parts linked down below. Our Amsoil stuff is down below. If you become a Amsoil preferred customer using the link down below, you can save up to 25% off on your oil. We use it in every single thing down to my truck, my daughter's Jeep. Everything we have has Amsoil in it. We use their break-in oil, their assembly lube. All their stuff is amazing, and it's the best oil on the market. So make sure to use those because Clovis Lubricants did provide us with this dyno to give you this series. So we want to show him some thanks. Thank you guys so much for watching. We love you guys, and we can't wait to see you on the next Road to Horsepower.